Mama, why is it that anytime a man asks for my hand in marriage, something bad ends up happening to him?
And then she remembered.
I'll give you a child, but you must accept this one condition.
My daughter, I'm sorry, and I regret my actions, but you must know why.
Welcome to The Silent Narrator. Please like and subscribe and stay with us.
Mama Ebi had been married for many years without a child. In the village of Umuoko, people no longer asked her when she would give birth. They had asked too many times already. Now they only looked at her with pity. Every morning she swept the compound before sunrise, fetched water, cooked for her husband, and worked harder than most women in the village. Yet none of it mattered, because in Umuoko, a woman without a child was seen as incomplete. At first, her husband Okoro defended her. Whenever people mocked her, he would say, "Children come from God, leave my wife alone." But years passed. 1 year became 3. 3 became 7. Slowly, the pressure changed him. His relatives whispered into his ears constantly. His mother reminded him that his younger brothers already had children running around their compounds. Sometimes at night, Mama Ibi would wake up and find her husband sitting silently outside, staring into darkness. And she understood what he was thinking. One afternoon, while returning from the market, she overheard women speaking behind her. A home without a child is like a river without water. The women laughed quietly. Mama Ebi continued walking as if she heard nothing, but that night, she cried alone. Months later, Okoro married another wife. Her name was Adana. She was younger, louder, and full of life. The village celebrated the marriage heavily. Mama Ebi forced herself to smile through the ceremonies while people danced around her own husband and his new wife. Then, barely a year later, Adana became pregnant. The entire village rejoiced. Drums were played. Women sang outside the compound. Mama Ebi stayed inside her room listening to the celebration from behind the wall. That night, she cried harder than she ever had before. After the child was born, things became worse. Okoro laughed again. He carried the baby proudly through the village. People who once visited Mama Ebi stopped greeting her entirely. She became invisible inside her own home, and slowly she began visiting the river. At first, it was simply a place to escape. The river sat far behind the village forest where few people went during evenings. It was quiet there, peaceful. Nobody watched her cry. Every evening after her chores, she would sit beside the flowing water for hours. Sometimes she spoke aloud, sometimes she prayed, sometimes she simply stared onto the river silently while tears rolled down her face. One evening, after being mocked openly during a naming ceremony, Mama Ebi walked to the river, shaking with pain. She fell to her knees beside the water. "What kind of woman am I?" she cried. "Even if it is only once before I die, let me know what it feels like to be called mother." The forest became strangely still. Even the sound of insects faded. Then a calm voice spoke from the river. Not loud, not frightening, just soft. "Would you pay the price?" Mama Ibi froze. Her breathing stopped. She looked around but saw nobody. Again the voice came. "Would you accept the condition if a child is given to you?" Fear covered her body, but desperation was stronger. With trembling lips, she whispered, "Yes." The river remained silent for a while before speaking again. The child will never belong to another family. She must never marry. Mama Ebi did not fully understand the warning. All she heard was one thing. A child. And in her desperation, she agreed. Days passed, weeks passed. Then suddenly, after years without pregnancy, Mama Ebi conceived. The village was shocked. Some called it a miracle. Others said God had finally answered our prayers. When she gave birth, the entire compound gathered in celebration. It was a baby girl. And from the moment people saw the child, they knew she was different. They named her Nkem. As Nkem grew, her beauty became impossible to ignore. She had smooth, dark skin that seemed to glow under sunlight. Her eyes were sharp and bright like she understood things beyond her age. Her hair grew long and thick, falling down her back beautifully whenever older women braided it. And her voice? Even when she was a little girl, people stopped talking whenever she sang. It was soft and sweet, like cool evening rain. But beauty was not the only thing that made people admire her. Nkem learned everything unusually fast. If an older woman taught her how to weave once, she mastered it immediately. If elders discussed farming techniques, she remembered every detail. She was clever with calculations during trade and wise beyond her age. Sometimes older villagers would joke, this girl did not come into the world like normal children. Even Okoro loved her deeply. The same man who once ignored Mama Ebi now spent evenings proudly walking beside his daughter through the village paths. For many years, peace returned to the family, but Mama Ebi never forgot the river's warning. Sometimes she would watch Nkem laughing with her friends and suddenly become afraid for no reason. Years passed. Nkem became a young woman, and soon men began coming to ask for her hand in marriage. The first man was a wealthy palm wine trader. Everything was prepared for the introduction ceremony. Then suddenly, 2 days before the visit, the man called everything off without explanation. People were surprised, but life continued. Then another man came. This one was a respected hunter. On the morning he was supposed to visit Nkem's family, he disappeared during a hunting trip. His body was never found. After that, fear slowly entered the village. Still, more men continued admiring Nkem. But every marriage discussion ended strangely. One fell seriously sick. Another changed his mind suddenly. One family even turned back halfway to the village after their vehicle broke down repeatedly on the road. Rumors spread quickly. Something follows that girl. Nkem began hearing the whispers. The same villagers who once praised her now spoke carefully around her. Whenever her friends got married, even her own sister, she smiled publicly but cried privately. One evening after returning from another failed marriage discussion, she confronted her mother angrily. Why does this keep happening to me? Mama Ebi looked away silently, and Nkem stepped closer. Tell me the truth. Tears filled Mama Ebi's eyes immediately, because she knew the day she feared had finally arrived. That night, she told Nkem everything. The river, the promise, the condition. The room became silent after the confession. Nkem stared at her mother in disbelief. So my life was decided before I could even speak? Mama Ebi fell to her knees crying. I was desperate, she whispered. I only wanted to be called mother. For days, Nkem stopped speaking to anyone. Then one night, without telling her family, she walked alone toward the river, the same river that gave her life. The forest was quiet as she stood beside the water. Tears rolled down her face. If my life was borrowed, she said softly, then take it back. The river became unnaturally still. The wind stopped moving. Even the trees seemed frozen. Then silence. Deep silence. The next morning, villagers found only Nkem's wrapper near the riverbank. Nothing else. No footprints, no body, no sign of struggle. She was gone. Mama Ebi screamed until her voice failed. For weeks, people searched the forests and nearby villages, but Nkem was never seen again. Years later, the river slowly began drying up. The villagers stopped going there at night, and old people still whispered that the river had finally collected the debt it was owed. But every evening, Mama Ebi still sat alone beside the dry riverbed, staring into the silence where her daughter had disappeared forever.